America, we are back, baby. Welcome to another episode of America Unfiltered. We got a great show for you guys tonight. Today, I want to go over Piers Morgan's reaction that he did today with a panel of guests to the interview he had with Nicholas J. Fuentes. He did this panel with people like Dr. Phil, Andrew Colvett, multiple other people. So I want to go over this today. I think it'll be a great show. I'm still feeling a little sick. You guys could probably hear it in my voice today. So we're not going to be doing the news. And to be honest, there's nothing really to fucking talking about. There's not a lot in the news going on right now. It's a very slow news week. It's always slow around the holiday times. Hopefully it picks up soon. I know we're going to be having a massive week next week when Candace Owens sits down to do her reaction to Turning Point USA stream. I know we're all a little disappointed she won't be there. Some people support it, but I don't get that. But we'll talk about that a little bit today. But we're going to do a reaction stream to Piers Morgan's panel that he did with Dr. Phil and other people on his show today. I know Harry Sisson made an appearance. Multiple people made an appearance. So we're going to check it out. We're going to get right into it today. Should be a fun show. I want to remind everyone to like, smash the follow button, leave a comment, let me know what you think about the show, rate the show 5 stars on Spotify, and join the Telegram channel by scanning that code up there to stay updated on all things America Unfiltered. And all comments we will still be reading at the end of the show as normal. But with that, let's get right into the show today.
My family had a saying about Olive Garden that contains the N-word.
Do you think you grew up in a racist environment? That your father was inherently racist?
You want to go after families? We can play that game. Your family's greenlit then too, Piers. Fuck you and your family.
You did bring up the guy's dad, and you said his name. This is a person who has had people attempt to assassinate him.
The most powerful role model in any child's life is the same-sex parent.
You, I think, are the only interviewer so far to really hold Nick Fuentes accountable.
Say what you want
Shut
about
up,
him.
Harry.
He's extremely smart, an incredibly talented communicator, and very well read. The reason he has attracted a lot of attention is because he's speaking to the anger and frustration, a lot of which is valid.
Just about everybody else has had their say on my interview with Nick Fuentes this week, with the notable exception of me. There's been columns in newspapers and magazines, endless hours of YouTube commentary, hundreds of thousands of posts on X, plus the inevitable swarm of groyper weirdos following me everywhere online. All of that was to be expected. Fuentes is highly controversial.
Groyper weirdos? What do you mean?
Why I invited him on in the first place. What I didn't really expect was the frenetic and compulsive pearl clutching from Fuentes and his troll army, who ironically accused me of doing exactly the same thing during the interview. Fuentes and his followers are particularly upset about this. There was an episode of your podcast where you talked about your father, Bill Fuentes, and how he wouldn't take the family, including you, to certain restaurants because he believed they were associated with African Americans. We would be deciding where to go to eat, you said. What are we going to do for dinner tonight? It was a running joke. Me and my sister would say Applebee's, and my dad would say we would never eat at Applebee's. Not in a million years should you be caught dead, Fuentes said about Applebee's. Go to a different restaurant, a local restaurant, no Applebee's, no Red Lobster. That is commonly known as black fare. And you also shared another story about your family and restaurants. Said before me and my sister were born, my family had a saying about Olive Garden that contains the N-word that we're not allowed to say. So my question, based on that anecdote that you say on your own podcast, is do you think you grew up in a racist environment, that your father was inherently racist, and that thought process moved to you? Well, Fuentes responded by getting very worked up and directing his trolls to harass me and all my family, all very predictable.
You want to go after families? We can play that game. Your family's greenlit then too, Piers. Your family's greenlit as well. So, fuck you and your family. Fuck you and fuck your kids. You bring my dad into it?
But Nick, if you clutch those pearls any harder, they will bruise the back of your neck. To be clear, again, this wasn't a low blow or a trap or an attack on Bill Fuentes. It was a question about a story.
Is Piers about to get mad that people are talking about his wife? Piers has been cucked by his wife. It's very apparent on social media. His wife was literally on Ashley Madison, which is a website for cheaters to go on to have affairs. And she talked about this to a news publication. And she also posts multiple times on her Instagram pictures of her in bed with other guys. Her saying that she wants a pool boy. Her saying, posting a picture of a guy in a thong, saying that when my husband's out of town, he comes out. Like, all these weird things, insinuating that she's a cheating slut. So is that what he's getting at here? Because, like, you asked for that. Don't marry a whore. I mean, that just seems like pretty fucking obvious, right, Piers?
Which I thought could be insightful. And it was a story that Nick Fuentes decided to share on his own show to his own followers.
My dad refused to allow us. My dad would not let us go. that was a common joke. We would be deciding where to go to eat. You know, what are we going to get for dinner tonight? And it was a running joke that me and my sister would say, Applebee's, and my dad would say, no, we will never eat at Applebee's. So, yeah, so not in a million years she'd be caught dead. Go to some other place. Go to a different restaurant. Go to a local restaurant. So yeah, no Applebee's, no Red Lobster. That is commonly known as black fare. And before me and my sister were born, my family had a saying about Olive Garden that contains the N-word that, you know, we're not allowed to say, that my parents wouldn't say around me and my sister about Olive Garden, its relationship with black people. It contains a bad word, it contains a naughty word in there, so I'm not going to repeat it here. But yeah, we don't eat there.
So that's Nick Fuentes, in his own words, telling the story that he objected to me asking him about. Well, one of my objectives for the interview was to find out a bit more about this guy who's at the center of a big raging storm amid the conservative movement in America right now. Is he just performative, outrageous, and attention-seeking? Or does he really believe the most incendiary things that he says? And if the answer to that question is yes, how did he get there? Having interviewed people for nearly 4 decades now, I find their upbringing is almost always influential one way or another. And if you don't want other people to talk about it, then why talk about it very publicly yourself? There are many more interesting points of debate from this interview, from crime stats and racism to generational divides to Holocaust denial. We get to all of them, and we'll do with my panel shortly. But this one small exchange has, for me, really made a bigger point. What Fuentes and his fans hate most is any accountability. It's all about speaking unchallenged into an echo chamber where there's a whole movement built on directing blame and anger onto everybody else. Girls don't like you because they're difficult. Your neighborhood's in decline because of the...
Women are difficult. Have you ever dealt with them? Your wife is literally cucking you, and you're going to say women are easy? Yeah, it's probably easy to just be a cuck, I'd imagine. What a stupid fuck.
Black people. The world is corrupt because of the Jews, and so on. Now, he's angry about this story being shared because, in fact, he shared it himself. It wasn't a game or a trick to question Nick Fuentes about the words of Nick Fuentes. That was the whole point of the interview. Well, I'll be joined by a stellar panel in a moment. We'll begin with Dr. Phil, host of The Real Story. Dr. Phil, great to have you back on Uncensored, as always. What do you make of Nick Fuentes?
Well, a lot. And I first have to say, I commend you.
It would be so much funnier if they had the fake Dr. Phil come out dressed as Dr. Phil. What's that comedian's name? Adam Ray? Adam Ray. I don't know why I'm sick, so my mind's not working as well. But I've seen him live. It's hilarious. He does a fake Dr. Phil impression, and it's like a dirty Dr. Phil. Very funny. It would have been so much funnier if that was fake Dr. Phil.
Thank you for doing this interview. I know some people say, why would you platform this person? I think it took courage for you to put him on, and I'm glad that you did, because if there's not an adult in the room to ask the hard questions and hold these type of voices accountable, then they just run unchecked.
Right.
And you saw what happened here. I spent a lot of time doing trial science work in the litigation arena, and we always say your story goes a lot better if you're the only one telling it. And that's what people mean when they talk about echo chambers and living in a bubble. And what you did was hold him accountable for what he says.
Right.
And of course, that's not near as much fun when a narcissist is not in a room full of people that are nodding along with him. And you just said, listen, I'm not going to introduce anything new here. I'm going to ask you about what you said and let you explain what you said. And there was no ambush here. He could have predicted with great accuracy what you were going to ask. You just asked it in a very critical thinking sort of way, and that was very uncomfortable for him because someone was holding him to account. And thank you for doing it.
What do you mean it was uncomfortable for him? He was laughing the entire time. He was having fun. He spent 2 hours trolling Piers. And Piers didn't even realize. I don't think Piers still realizes it. I still think Piers is... I think he's oblivious to the fact that Nick spent 2 hours trolling him and clip farming.
That. Because his opinions that he's spreading are ugly, they're corrosive, they're deeply un-American, and that's the psychology of extremism. I think that he is not empowering young men; he's manipulating them. And
what a retard,
Piers! I'm going to take a breath here in a minute and let you comment on what I'm saying. But this is the same algorithm that social media uses. If people like something, they click a little bit. If you can get them worked up about something, they click a whole lot. And that's the same strategy as the algorithm that makes social media so toxic. And that's what he does. And you called him out on that in a very transparent and fair-minded way. You let him tell his story, but you ask about some of the key points.
Yeah, and what was really interesting was I don't think he expected that anecdote about his father to come out so early, or if at all. So he looked a bit taken aback. And the reason I asked it was very specific. I said to him, in all my experience of interviewing people, and you've interviewed as many as I have, Phil, if not more, I really do believe that the vast majority of people are a product of their environment. And if Nick Fuentes, through his own story about his parents there, and particularly his father, if he grew up in an environment of overt racism, with his father saying, I'm not taking you to certain restaurants because they're associated with black fare, then you can begin to understand why he himself has become overtly racist.
No real Italians go to Olive Garden. Like, what are you fucking bitching about? Shut up. This is the gayest thing I've seen so far. I mean, this is completely, utterly retarded.
And indeed is proud of it. So to me, it was a very relevant question. But again, it can't be an ambush if all I'm doing is asking him about a story he himself put in the public domain.
He did introduce it into the public domain with great fanfare and having a great time doing it. Look, the most powerful role model in any child's life is the same-sex parent. They write on the slate of who their children are, and they start doing that from a very early age. And they write on the slate emotionally, socially, in terms of values, thinking process. So you're quite right to bring that up. If you want to know who someone is, you need to look at from whence they came. And that doesn't mean they don't have a chance to alter that when they get other worldviews. But certainly that's a relevant subject matter that he introduced. He just introduced it when no one was calling him out or questioning him about it. And it was interesting to me how quickly he put on the victim hat.
They also leave out Nick's entire backstory with that, of like Nick starting as a libertarian and Nick not having any of these views about race and about some of his views about religion. Like, he was pro-Israel at first, pro-Ted Cruz. And his views shifted over time as he learned more. It shifted more with knowledge, it didn't start that way because he grew up in this racist environment. Like, this is completely disingenuous. This is just lies. This is bullshit.
And started retreating. I thought it came across as very whiny, immature,
whiny? Learn how to fucking speak.
Insecure and inadequate. And he said he was a racist. He said he was an incel. He used that term. He introduced that. And that's defined as very misogynistic and resentful and blaming of others, blaming women, blaming minorities, blaming Jews. He's blaming so many other people, which is strange for someone that's in a leadership position to try to do.
I asked him about his own sex life, right? Because it seems to be relevant, because of this whole belief that he runs a group of incels, who are involuntary celibates, supposedly. And this is how the exchange went down. Are you actually attracted to women?
I am attracted to women.
You're not gay?
No. But I will say that women are very difficult to be around.
Okay.
So there's that.
And do you think they should have the right to vote?
No.
I do not. No, absolutely not.
They should stay at home?
Yes.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So basically, you're just a misogynist old dinosaur, aren't you? For a young guy.
Yeah.
I mean, I know I'm the boomer. I know I'm the boomer here. But actually, you're a 27-year-old dinosaur, aren't you? Aren't you, Nick Fuentes? All women,
I am.
All women are annoying. All women grow old. They all get fat. Says the guy. Have you ever had sex?
No, absolutely not.
Wow. Says the guy who's never got laid. Wow.
That's the thing, though. You boomers, it's always
you're an
get
expert
laid,
in women,
free love.
given you've never got laid?
He's a Catholic.
Yeah, we are going back to the Stone Age. You're absolutely right. This, you're talking about empathy, and your kids are empathetic, and they would never laugh at a joke about the Holocaust, and you're a misogynist. You're a simp yourself. You're totally henpecked. That's the problem.
And what was interesting, Phil, he went on to admit he'd never been in love, never had any meaningful relationship with a woman, and yet he's so misogynist in his rhetoric about women, so demeaning about them. I talked there earlier in the interview, which is why I referred again, about how he'd said on his show that women, the trouble is they're not just annoying, they get old, they get ugly, they get fat, and so on. Really demeaning, horrible language about women, but not difficult to work out why he would feel this.
Why is it demeaning and crazy to say that people get old and fat? Like, that does happen. That's just speaking factually. And him saying that he wants to wait till a little later in life to marry someone a little younger. Like, what the fuck is wrong with that? That's ridiculous. That's one of the most ridiculous things I've heard. And then trying to shit on him for saying, oh, he hasn't even gotten laid. It's like, okay, he's a Catholic. You claim to be a Catholic, yet you want women to be priests, and you think people should be having sex before marriage? Don't call yourself a Catholic. You're just a retard, Piers.
This way, if he's never had any real interaction with them. Every so often, there's a piece of cinematic entertainment that just feels bigger and bigger. Not another Hollywood reboot.
It's a fucking
the Pendlebury
ad
classic
already.
King Arthur's Full Silence between Merlin premieres exclusively.
We waited 50 minutes for an ad on the first show, and now we're at 14 minutes in. Are you fucking kidding me? Like, come on. Come on, Piers.
Well, it's very transparent. And I mean, these go back to some of the oldest.
Wait, that was a Daily Wire ad, too. That was a Daily Wire ad on Piers' network. No wonder Piers fucking hates Nick. No wonder. Ben Shapiro is whipping. Get back to work, Piers Morgan. Get back. It's just like that fucking shit. Instant callback to the Callie Groiper girl yesterday, who was literally doing those little figurines like, get back to work, Piers Morgan. That's what Ben Shapiro's doing to him. He's running ads on his show.
Parables in the world. You're talking about sour grapes here, and this is someone that has gotten into a comfort zone where he doesn't interact, he doesn't have relationships that call on him to engage in meaningful conversation with women, learn what they're about and who they are. It's easy to sit up in the cheap seats and criticize. And of course, we know that the talent pool in this world at every level. If we took women out of the talent pool in this world, we would be crippled so bad. Look at what's happening in medicine, technology, so many areas that if you look at the enrollment in universities right now, women have eclipsed men. He is so uninformed in his views, and the problem is you get in the.
You should read the bell curve, Dr. Phil. You should read the bell curve. Do you think Dr. Phil or Piers Morgan, without looking it up, and this is something I challenge my viewers as well, do you think you could name 10 female geniuses without looking it up? Actual geniuses. 10 female geniuses. Because everybody can name 10 male geniuses pretty quickly. But they don't exist on the other side. And he's like, oh, we'd be crippled. For thousands of years it worked. For thousands of fucking years it worked. And then this country's going to shit right now. And it happens to be at the same time that we have mass migration, that we have this multiculturalism bullshit, that we have women in the workplace and voting and all this stuff, and women not having kids doing what they're supposed to do.
These cult-like communities where you get people that maybe haven't had a good role model in their lives and have someone like him who can be entertaining, can be charismatic. He's a nice-looking young man. And people, young men will follow that. If they don't have good father figures in their own life, in the absence of real leadership, they'll follow almost anyone if they present well. And that's a problem. And mothers and fathers, families need to be asking, what can I do to fortify?
That's retarded. I have a great family life. I still love Nick.
Fortify my young men against this kind of exploitation. And that's why
you think trying to push your kids away from him is going to I'm sorry I'm pausing it so often, but it's like, this guy is retarded. You think telling your kids, don't watch Nick Fuentes, you think that's going to work? No. Your kids are going to give you 2,000 years of bloodshed in history.
people should be standing up and applauding you, exposing with great transparency what's going on here with this
Two boomer
Nick Fuentes
retards.
phenomenon.
Well, all I wanted to
Jerking each
do,
other
honestly,
off.
was to work out whether it was all performative or whether he really believes a lot of the things that he says. And by the end, I concluded he does actually believe a lot of this stuff. And
I
what
think he does.
shit.
I think he believes some of it.
But what I wasn't
I think
expecting, Phil, which I was really quite shocked by, and it takes a lot to shock me, but the sheer volume and venom on social media of his so-called groypers, these young men that adhere to his every word, who he kind of unleashes on people. It was unbelievably brazen in its misogyny, in its racism, in its anti-Semitism. It was some of the most vile stuff I've seen in a long time, and it was relentless and has carried on. And targeting me, targeting members of my family, whatever. I don't care. I'm used to it. I've had a lot worse, actually, than this. They remind me of a bunch of mean boys at school. And, you know, obviously I'm 60 years old. It's not going to wash the sides.
What, 'cause
kind
your
of thing.
wife's a
However,
whore and people
it
are
was
calling it
noticeable
out?
to me that they were almost to a man, young, male, misogynist, racist, and anti-Semitic, and view everything he says as sacrosanct. You know, this is a kind of brainwashed world. The only question I don't know is how much of them are genuine human beings and how much maybe, as has been reported today in the New York Post, foreign bots that are unleashed because they analyze the speed of reaction to stuff that he posts, and they've worked out a lot of it comes from over.
We're going to debunk this real quick. Nick already debunked it, but they're saying because a lot of people retweet and like Nick's posts pretty fast that it's most likely bots. Have you guys ever factored in that he just has a loyal fan base, that people like me and other people have his notifications on, and unlike people like Elon or Caroline Levitt or things like that, like he only tweets like 1 to 3 times a day, so it's not like you got to be on your phone 24/7 to see it. It's just ridiculous. He has a loyal fan base. Like, I'm one of the people who has his notifications on. You know, I instantly will like the post or retweet it depending on what it is. And they just think we're bot farms? No, you guys are just dinosaurs who don't understand social media. This is why boomers are irrelevant, because they're this retarded. This is 2 boomers having a fucking circle jerk.
The seas, and a lot of it may be bots, actual robots doing this stuff.
These bot farms now, there was a time when people would use these bots and they would deploy them by the hundreds. But now our research shows that these bot farms, a lot of them out of Russia and some other foreign countries, are deployed in the tens of thousands. And what happens is they start kind of a zeitgeist on the internet, and then others, real people, see that, and then they start jumping on the bandwagon. And so it can drive a social media kind of think can drive social media to appear that it's thinking a certain.
Not the last time I paused the whole thing, but for a little bit. Elon literally cleansed most of the bots off of X, and obviously there's still some, you can't get rid of all of them, but he cleansed almost all the bots off of X. But somehow the Groypers are just the last remaining bots on X. Like, do you guys see the holes in your fucking logic? And also, Elon is constantly targeting Nick, calling him a fed, saying these things about him. Don't you think that if Elon had proof that Nick was botting all of his posts, that Elon would have released it by now? It's just retarded. Piers is a fucking idiot sometimes.
Certain way, but I'm sure in the middle of that, he has followers that do echo what he's saying, and it's whiny, it's immature, it's insecure, it's highly transparent, and you wonder what's going to happen to these young men if somebody doesn't force them into some critical thinking, where they say, "Listen, what's the end result here? Where does this lead me in my life?" As opposed to opening themselves up to some real interaction and some real critical thinking, where they say, "What do I want? What's my goal in life? Do I want to have a family? Do I want to have children? Do I want to have a meaningful career where I can fit into a fully functional society?" And if they stay on this path, they're going to be lonely, depressed, anxious, inadequate, with a false sense of superiority that is very, very empty, very, very meaningless. And I hate that. I hate that for these young men, because he is misleading them. He's not empowering them. He is misleading them.
Yeah, I totally agree. I've got 3 sons of 32, 28, 25. And I'd be horrified if they behaved like that. Horrified if they had those attitudes and views. Horrified if they were so dismissive of things like the Holocaust. Horrified if they spoke about women.
He said he's a maximalist.
Horrified if they were brazenly admitting to being racists and openly admitted they'd avoid black people in case they get attacked and so on. All of it was actually quite disturbing.
Why is that bad? That's just good pattern recognition. So you want people to have more critical thinking skills, but you don't want them to have pattern recognition. Got it. You guys are just retarded.
Well, it is. But think about all of these young men that are seemingly ascribing to his mindset. Think about what they're being cheated out of. Think about all the joy and pleasure and fulfillment that they're actually getting cheated out of if they stay this course. I mean, think about all the joy you've had with your kids, all of the rich relationships you have with female colleagues that would be off the table. Think about everything that's missed. And when your heart is filled with hatred and this anti-Semitism, and how much you're out of touch with reality in denying the Holocaust. And you got him to agree that actually the Holocaust was real, and that he said even more than 6 million people. And there were much more than 6 million people, because it wasn't just the Jews that were impacted. And you got him to acknowledge some of those things. And I wonder how he'll...
They don't realize he's trolling. Sorry, I'm sick. They do not realize that Nick spent 2 hours trolling him. It's so funny because this is just boomer retards trying to break down the Zoomer mentality. We're just so much smarter than you guys. You guys are dumb as shit.
Square that up with his followers based on what he said in the past. But I think he has convinced himself that some of this is real, and that's just that's a sad fact.
Yeah. Dr. Phil, as always, on the money. Thank you very much indeed.
Well, thank you for doing this interview, because as I say, if you don't, then I think it takes you to drill in on this and ask some of the uncomfortable questions. If not, then he runs unabated on the internet. I can't believe people are saying, why are you giving him a platform? Because he needs to be asked the hard questions.
I agree. I feel the same about Andrew Tate and these other characters. They have huge online followings. They are very influential. You can pretend they're not. You can put your head in the sand and let them go ever bigger without anything being challenged. Or you take a view as I do. It's better to get them in front of you, ask them a lot of tough questions about their views and what they've said, and let people make their own minds up about whether they really want to lasso themselves to this person. Bill, thank you. Appreciate it.
Well done, Piers. We'll talk soon.
Thank you very much.
Bill came
joining
off
me
like
on the
a
panel now is
retard
Warren
there.
Smith, critical thinker and founder of the Secret Scholar Society, Andrew Wilson, host of The Crucible, Mark Lamont Hill, host of Bet News, and influencer Harry Sisson. And also joining us a little later will be Glen Greenwood. All right, Harry Sisson, we're in the unique position, I believe, where you and I may have a slight agreement here about all this. So what was your view of the Fuentes interview?
Harry's so gay.
Piers, I don't think it's a slight agreement. I think it's a full agreement. First and foremost, I do want to start off by saying I thought the way that you conducted the interview was fantastic. I watched the entire thing, and you I think, were the only interviewer so far to really hold Nick Fuentes accountable and not let him get away with a lot of his hateful views. I love how you played the clips side by side and made him defend it on the record. So I want to give props to you there. I thought it was really well done, and I watched the entire thing. And I was trying to decide, similar to you, does Nick Fuentes actually believe these things, or is he doing it for the money? Is it performative? And I might disagree slightly with you. I think it's both. I think he does believe some of these things, and I think some of it's performative. I think when he tried to moderate himself, that's performative. But the more hateful views that, as you mentioned, when the mask kind of slipped, that's what he truly believes. You could tell that he was trying to moderate himself when, as you were talking about with Dr. Phil, talking about the Holocaust. He said, I believe it was the Holocaust, at least 6 million Jews. He said that, but then simultaneously claimed that Hitler is cool and that he liked his uniforms and the music and things like that. So, no, I mean, I think Nick Fuentes broadly is a sad, insecure man. I think he's a liar. I think he's a grifter. And I think you exposed that in the interview.
Andrew Wilson, what did you think?
Harry Sisson calling Nick Fuentes a grifter is crazy. I mean, Harry's one of the biggest grifters and retards and bitches in media right now. Harry Sisson's an absolute pussy.
I was just watching your previous segment, and I thought that the framing there was a little off. So I've always appreciated coming on the show and you letting me get my viewpoints out. But I do take some issue with your framing. You did bring up the guy's dad, and you said his name. And when you said it on the air that way, this is a person who has had people attempt to assassinate him. They have come to his house, shown up at his door, and tried to kill him. And that's on video happening. And so when you said the guy's name and then try to tie it into racism, I know that you know this, Piers, but the left broadly will do these harassment campaigns. These harassment campaigns are designed specifically to incite the violence of many of their mentally ill followers.
Andrew, let me just say,
that's what they do.
Yeah, let me just say, if I had my time again, I wouldn't have said his father's name, but I would have still told the anecdote because I thought it was really important to Nick Fuentes.
The anecdote's not the relevant part.
But the anecdote is relevant. Yeah. The anecdote is relevant when he immediately tried to attack me for ambushing him with a story that he told himself on his show. I mean, look, if I told a story like that,
that's not what people are upset about.
No, I understand.
They weren't upset about the anecdote. They were upset that you specifically said the guy's name after Fuentes has had these assassination attempts on him.
To be clear, if I had my time again, wouldn't have said his father's name, notwithstanding the fact you can find it in 2 seconds on the internet. Right? So it's not like it's not difficult to find. But I do think it's important that anecdote, to me, was potentially very relevant to why Nick Fuentes is the way he is.
Yeah, but now, how many people have seen the other interview? Like 5 million? 5 million people now know his father's name who shouldn't have known it in the first place? Like, I mean, just dismissing that point completely, but sucking off Dr. Phil 5 minutes ago just shows how disingenuous and stupid you are, Piers.
About racism, for example, because he was telling a story that cannot be construed, Andrew, any other way than his father was directing them away from restaurants because of his racist views about the people that go in them or run them. And it couldn't be seen any other way.
I get that. I get the point of bringing the anecdote up, but that wasn't what looked to me like what was making these guys so angry. Was not the anecdote itself, but the fact that you said the guy's name, referenced it as his dad, And then, this guy's
I actually think both are bad.
had assassination attempts.
Yeah, but
the
story was him telling the story.
By the way, hang on. A lot of the first assassination attempt happened because of the "Your Body, My Choice" thing that he put that tweet out, and people began doxing his address and his family's name, and that's why they showed up to kill him. So the guy's grievance there, I think, is legitimate.
Yeah, but I think it's important that his grievance wasn't just that I named his father, which again is a matter of public record. You can find it anywhere. Although I wouldn't have said it if I had my time again, because I don't want to attack his family for the sake of attacking his family. It was when he tried to frame it as an unfair attack on his family, when I think actually the story that he himself put in the public domain was potentially very relevant to why he is the way he is. I as a journalist,
well, how he was framing it was you're bringing this up in name doxing specifically so that you can rally people into a harassment campaign. That's how he saw it.
No, but that wasn't. Yeah, okay, but just to be clear again, that was not my intention. My intention was to ask him, in all sincerity, if you grow up in an environment at home where there is clear racism that you have discussed yourself on your own show, very unarguably, you can't listen to the clip. I played it earlier without realizing that's what he's saying. Then, is that relevant to the way he is? Let me bring in Mark Lamont Hill here. I mean, Mark, I didn't do that lightly. I had decided before I did the interview that I would do a lot of research into this. I would find all the clips that I felt were the most incendiary things he'd said on the record, and I would ask him and push him about them in a way that I don't think anyone else has really done, and it would be interesting to see the way he responded. And if you're going to talk to Nick Fuentes, who openly admits to being a racist, he did it again with me in the show, that anecdote to me was pertinent to why he may have shaped those views. What do you think? Was it unfair?
I think the anecdote was entirely fair and necessary, particularly since, the first part of the interview was very much about his biography. It was very much about what shaped him. He himself volunteered information, even in that interview, about his parents, about how they came together, about the loss of their fathers, etc. All that to me is fair game. I agree that invoking his father's name in that moment was too far. I hear you saying if you could do it again, you wouldn't, because I do have some ethical and moral reservations about doxing. I don't think it's wrong, for example, if someone does something awful in public and it's relevant to the public interest to track down their job and notify their job. But that's not the same thing as tracking down every private citizen just because we think they're racist or sexist or anti-Semitic or homophobic. I may think you're that thing, but you have a right to be that thing, even though I think it's awful. And I don't think you should live without safety because of that. Now, there's a bigger question, Piers, that you raised at the top of the interview, and it's come up again in the media, and that is, should you even be talking to this guy?
Right.
And I got to be honest with you, Piers, I've struggled with this. I interview controversial people. I sit down with people who people say don't platform them, and I take seriously your point that they already have a platform. And I'm not making them big. I'm not drawing attention to them. They already have the attention. They're just not being questioned or challenged on that platform. I concede that point. I agree with you fully. The problem with this guy, the problem with Nick Fuentes in particular, though, to me, is he's such a chameleon. And he moves in such a way that I'm not sure holding him accountable matters to his base. And he does just enough to look moderate and normal and reasonable that I think he'll do more damage by sneaking some people from the middle and dragging them to his side because they think he's reasonable and only later find out that he's a sexist, misogynist, Hitler-loving Nazi, right? Or whatever he is, right? That's where the danger comes from me. I'm not saying we should interview controversial people. I'm just saying this particular guy, I feel like we're playing into his interests and his angle.
Yeah, well, Glen Greenwood, welcome back to Uncensored. You've had Fuentes on your show. What's your view about that issue, about platforming him at all?
Oh, I didn't even consider it to be a difficult question at all. I mean, if you're going to have people on who are responsible for the invasion and destruction of Iraq based on lies, or the incineration of Vietnam, or the destruction of Gaza and the death of tens of thousands of people, and welcome them and treat them like respectable people, tell me what it is that Nick Fuentes has done remotely as bad as that justifies allowing them to come on and speak, but not him. And whether you like it or not, he does speak for a huge number of people in his generation.
Did anyone see Harry have that big gulp right there once he said that? Harry's just bobbing his head like he's sucking a dick. Like, what the fuck is this panel? This is insane. This is a retarded panel.
And even other generations as well, who feel the same kind of anger and frustration with the status quo, with the establishment, with the kind of dogma that we've been told we have to accept. And there's a lot of people who are angry about it and who rebel against it. And we saw this with Donald Trump on maybe a little bit of a smaller scale, but very much the same pattern. When Donald Trump appeared, everybody was like, oh, he's racist and fascist and he's the misogynist and he's this and that. And no one wanted to grapple with the reason why his message was resonating so much. And to me, it is very similar to Nick Fuentes. Say what you want about him. He's extremely smart, an incredibly talented communicator, and very well read. Like, he's very informed. He's not just some sensationalist babbling on the internet. And I think the reason he has attracted a lot of attention is because he's speaking to the anger and frustration, a lot of which is valid, of a lot of people. And to stick your head in the sand and say, oh, we're going to pretend that this isn't happening because his views are too off, but the people who start wars or are responsible for the 2008 financial crisis, these are respectable people who we treat with respect, like Joe Biden or Hillary Clinton or whoever. That to me is the kind of thing that I think is really distorted.
Yeah, you know, Warren Smith. I'll bring
respond to that?
Well, no, let me bring in Warren Smith first, and then I'll come back to you, Mark. You know, Warren, that really is my feeling about it. Is that you can let these guys like Fuentes and Andrew Tate run riot, and they do already, and they have massive followings, millions and millions of young men. I know when I interview Tate, the number of young men who just come up to me in the street to ask about it is off the charts, more than almost any other guest I ever have. So we can either pretend this phenomenon isn't happening, and Fuentes is a phenomenon, whether people like it or not. And I don't hate everything about him. There were.
He's been going on for 10 fucking years now, and it's just getting started. You guys wait.
Elements of that interview where it was a genuinely quite interesting conversation. But there were elements which, either because he wanted to be performative and shocking and attention-seeking, whatever it may be, or because he really believes it, where I felt we saw a pretty dark underbelly of some of his beliefs. You know, I mean, just when somebody just says, I am a racist, and then explains, yeah, well, let me play the clip first, then come to you. You're fine with saying you're a racist?
Totally. I think everybody's racist. I think everybody, if we're being honest, is racist. I think everybody, the only people that aren't racist or pretend not to be are white people to their detriment. Everybody else is racist.
But earlier in the interview, you went really.
Sneeko literally went in the New York City subway tunnels and asked people, do white lives matter? And the majority of the black people were like, no, they don't. I fucking hate white people is what they said. But Piers doesn't want to acknowledge that because they're black.
You got aggrieved at the idea that your father was a racist. You wanted to make emphatically
because
sure
my father's.
He's not.
Because my father doesn't share my same views on that.
So he's the exception to the everyone's a racist.
Well, everybody's a little bit racist.
I mean, I thought it was an interesting contradiction there, which he was probably calculating in real time, that having got so exercised about the idea that his father was racist, he then said everyone's racist and there's nothing wrong with it, effectively. But putting that to one side, Warren, I mean, you know, this issue of whether you platform somebody like Fuentes, who has these inflammatory views, I think we can all agree they're inflammatory, a lot of his views. You know, am I, by doing it, am I continuing to fuel this phenomenon in a way that is a negative for society? Or in a free democratic society, you know, should I be entitled to interview who the hell I like, as long as I do my job as a journalist of holding him to account over these things, let other people work it out for themselves?
No, I think it's totally understandable, and I agree that you would have him on. I was in the same position where I was genuinely shocked when I made a knee-jerk response video to something he had said. I was overwhelmed by the response. I was like, I had no idea there were this many people out there that agreed with him. And I had people that I knew actually telling me, no, you're oversimplifying this. And I actually went back and looked at the same clip and realized I had oversimplified it. I was looking at it through the narrative, going into it without much prior research. And that actually led to me sitting down with him for an hour and a half. I think it's important, though, if you want to achieve the ideal outcome, it is important to actually genuinely be trying to gain a better understanding of his reasoning and in his arguments, and not just trying to win or embarrass, because at the long run, I think that will backfire and that will cause him to become bigger.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. You know, people were asking me, you know, he won, or people said you won. Or I said, I didn't seek out to win. I don't seek out ever to win an interview. That's not the point.
Nobody said Piers won. Good guys, go look at the comments under the video. Go look at the comments. There's not a single comment. We even went through the comments at the end of the last one. There's not a single comment that said, you won, Piers. You did a great job. Not a single comment giving Piers any credit. Every one of them was pro Nick.
Point of an interview, actually. What I wanted to do over 2 hours was, A, personally get to know him better, because I know nothing about him other than what I've read. I've never met him. I've never interviewed him. And B, to go over all these things which he's notorious for and actually work out the correct context, what he really believes, what may have motivated this, and so on. And I think a lot of that was achieved in the interview. But it wasn't, you know, I think it very quickly afterwards, you know, when I asked him during the interview, you know, how he felt towards the end, how he felt at the gun, he thought I'd been fair. He didn't think I'd ambushed him and so on. He made that clear in the interview. And yet afterwards, almost immediately afterwards, he comes out full bore on the attack, which is what he does. But it was interesting to me that it was the reaction from his sort of mob of groypers was instantaneous and extraordinarily widespread. They just come as this mob. And it's you know, if you're not me, who's got a very thick skin, it's a pretty hard thing to get back at you. Look, I don't care. I've had a lot worse, and they'll move on, and that's what happens. But if you're not, actually, it can be very intimidating. It was very threatening, very racist, very anti-Semitic, very very nasty, actually. Like I said, it wouldn't scrape the surface with me because I got a skin of 1,000 rhinos. But to other people, I could see it really being a pretty terrifying experience.
Hey, Piers, can I ask a question about that?
Yeah.
Sorry. They're doing that. They're doing that too.
Sorry, Glenn go first. Yeah.
Let me interrupt. It's really
Hang on, guys. Don't talk at once. Let me start with Glenn.
Thanks. Mark, I'm sorry to
The
interrupt.
black guy can't help himself from just jumping in and interrupting, proving Nick right. Nick, during the interview, when Piers kept interrupting, he's like, "Are you black?" And this black guy, the only black guy in the panel, is proving Nick right.
But the issue is, why does he have such a loyal following? Why does he have such a large and loyal following? Now, you can ask that question about Donald Trump, and a lot of people were satisfied by saying, oh, America's just filled with racists and misogynists and xenophobes, and he's playing into that. And maybe that is part of it. You know, politicians do demagogue and play to our worst instincts always, but there was a lot more to it than that. And I think people understand 10 years later that there is and was a lot more to that. So you can say, oh yeah, Nick Fuentes has this army of angry young men who are incredibly devoted to him, who believe that he's speaking truth uniquely, because they're also a bunch of Nazis and racists and Jew haters. And okay, that's an easy. I think there's a lot more to it, and I think people ought to grapple with the reason why he's speaking for so many people.
I think that's a very valid point. You know, I've always said about Andrew Tate, for example, that, you know, a lot of the things he says, I can understand. If you're a young, slightly disenfranchised young man, you feel society has got it in for you, and all you ever hear is man bashing. I can understand why you gravitate to a guy like Tate, who stands there tall and proud as a very masculine kind of guy, beating his chest, talking about, you know, taking care of your body and getting fit and being a protector and all these things. I get all that. But then he slides into brazen misogyny, which I hate. Mark Lamont Hill, let me bring you in here. I mean, I just want to, before you say what you want to say, you know, what he said after the interview, Nick Fuentes, was Piers Morgan tried his best, but his hardball interrogation made me look even better than Tucker's wildly criticised softball interview. The regime can acquiesce like Tucker, or it can try to resist like Piers, but the result is inevitably the same total Groiper victory. Now, look, on one level, I admire his social media work, right? He goes on the attack, he gives it full bells, he claims total victory. It's very Trumpian, and it can work. It can be very effective, okay? And he's perfectly entitled to claim total victory and whatever, and I'm sure all his supporters agree. But it's interesting that he views me and Tucker Carlson and other people who now do our own shows, whatever, as the regime. Almost like anybody who's older than him is part of some ancien regime that just doesn't get it. You know, all his supporters call me boomer, right? And I was like, I've been called that probably ever. Okay, I'm a boomer. I don't know what that means, but it just means I'm an old dude who doesn't get it, right? And it may be, as Glenn says, there is a more interesting conversation to be had about why these guys get so popular. And it may be that when I do my slightly old school journalistic trick, as somebody put it, of just being quite tough and rigorous with questioning, that it's viewed by young people who gravitate to people like these guys as just an old boomer going through the motions.
No, it's not. It's that you don't understand. When you were growing up, a house was $30,000 and 2 chickens. When you were growing up, there weren't women fucking 1,000 guys a day and going on OnlyFans when they were 18. Although I know your wife is a whore, Piers. But you don't understand the world people live in today. You don't understand any of it. And it's so fucking clear when you talk about it right now. It is so fucking clear that you don't understand any of it. And your conversation with Dr. Phil was absolutely insane.
Perhaps. I mean, and also I wouldn't assume that because he said that he believes it, that he actually believes you're part of the regime, or that he believes that one is softball or hardball. He gives a lot of the characteristics, mannerisms, approaches, styles of a cult leader. And cult leaders navigate their followers in very particular ways, including re-narrating or counter-narrating events that happen in ways that are favorable to them. That's why when I said I struggle with whether or not you should have him on the show, I didn't say you shouldn't, and I didn't say you should. I genuinely, it's a struggle for me. Again, as a journalist, I have interviewed despots, I've killers, you know, people, I mean, genocide leaders, I've done it all. And there are days where it feels very clear and obvious why I should do it. They need to be held accountable. They need to be forced to answer tough questions. And I don't put them in, contrary to what was said, I don't hold them in a different box than I do Hillary Clinton.
The fact that he puts Nick Fuentes in the same category as, like, people who've committed genocides and war crimes, like, what the fuck? Like, this is insane. This is literally insane.
You know, Joe Biden or someone who I voted for, you know, potentially, right? They all need to be held to scrutiny. Everybody in power needs to be held accountable. I'm with that. My concern in this particular case, though, is that I'm not sure what the net gain is. I don't know if you really got to know it better him, not because you didn't do a great job, you did do a great job, but because I'm not sure who the person is behind that persona. And the question I would ask you, Piers, is if you knew ahead of time that doing this interview would double the amount of people who believed in the worst things that he believes, would you still do the interview? If you knew ahead of time that it would double that
honestly
number,
don't think.
Would you still do it?
Well, I don't think that is going to be a consequence of it, honestly. But what I do think is that.
But if it were,
let me make my point. I don't like generalising. You know, when Hillary Clinton called Donald Trump supporters, the MAGA supporters, a basket of deplorables, it probably lost her that election. When you generalise about millions and millions of people, it's always a very precarious and stupid folly to do that. What I can say with some certainty is that pretty well 100% of his groypers who've directly messaged me or members of my family have been highly abusive, overtly racist, very misogynist, and many of them anti-Semitic. I can say that with certainty. Now, what I don't know is how many of those are human beings and how many are from a bot farm, because according to reports in the last 2 days, a lot of his stuff comes from bot farms. I don't know if that's true, but that's been reported in various mainstream papers.
I don't doubt it.
And I don't know how representative these ones on X or Instagram are of the total body of his support. I just don't know. So, I don't want to generalize and say
and neither do I, Piers.
I don't want to say all Nick Fuentes supporters are disgusting,
clear.
because there may be a lot of people. It's a bit like Tommy Robinson.
And to be clear, I'm not saying that.
The black guy is still the only one interrupting. It's hilarious.
Let me finish my point. It's a bit like Tommy Robinson. Tommy Robinson in the UK, right, is a bit like Fuentes over here. And there's no doubt, as the people marching with him have grown bigger and bigger and bigger, the idea that they're all fascist, racist, whatever, is nonsense. A lot of people are marching for well-intentioned reasons connected with the immigration crisis in the UK. Right? He has bad people as well, and I think he's a malevolent character. But again, I wouldn't generalize anymore about all these people that march.
Can I ask you a question, Piers?
Yes, yeah, sure.
I would like to dive into...
I didn't generalize.
Well, hang on, let Andrew come in. Let Andrew come in.
Okay.
Can this guy stop fucking interrupting?
The interview where you're very combative and you said you haven't even been laid and you're a virgin. This guy's a Roman Catholic.
Right.
Isn't he supposed to be a virgin until he's married? Isn't that part of your guys' faith?
To be fair to him, that is. I was brought up a Catholic. I'm not a particularly devout Catholic. I disagree with a lot of the church's
But you
teachings.
do agree that Catholics are supposed to remain chaste until marriage, right?
The strict interpretation from the Catholic Church about that is you should.
How come he didn't get? Shouldn't he get credit for that?
Well,
the idea that he's kind of staying within the confines of his religious beliefs.
I have no problem, but he also
or he can't get any action.
But he also self-identifies as
Shut
an
up,
incel.
Here's what Mark just said. You see what I mean? Like, he can't get any action. The guy is rich as shit, and he's a good-looking guy. He could get action if he wanted it, Mark. And by the way, hang on, Mark. Hang on. Just let me finish.
Harry and the black guy are seething down below. Like, Harry's like fucking shaking, and this black guy's like, you can't get action. Like, are you kidding me? Have you met the Groy Pets? They don't fucking shut the fuck up. They are actually... As funny as it is to watch it happen, it's so fucking annoying sometimes because some of them don't shut the fuck up. Like, you guys are, these guys on the panel are retarded.
That's the point.
I'm just teasing.
What I'm saying to you though is that yeah, of course he could. The thing is though is that if you guys are saying like he's a huckster, he's a fraud, isn't he in fact following rigorously his faith by doing that?
Well, so my response to that, I think it's a very...
what he said.
Hang on, Harry. I think it's
yes,
a really...
what he said in the interview.
I want to respond to Andrew.
No, it's not.
I think it's a perfectly valid question, particularly as I have always said I'm a Catholic. I was raised a Catholic. I had spiritual guidance from Catholic nuns when I was 12 years old. I go to church occasionally. I'm not devout. I'm not there all the time. I don't agree with some of the Catholic Church's views and policies, and I wish they would evolve faster. However, as speaking Catholic to Catholic with him, yes, it's a perfectly valid thing that he could say, I am saving myself for marriage. But if that's all he said, fine. But I would argue that, if you look at him as a Christian, for example, how many of his other views are compatible with being a Christian? Right?
His view on the priesthood,
his overt racism
was correct.
His Jew baiting, his overt racism, the despicable way he talks about women generally, and so on. None of those things are what you would categorize as being a good Christian. So
I think you can have dogmatic distinctions with him, and that's fine within the confines of the faith. But with the points he brought up, when he said women aren't allowed to be clergy, that's true. They're not allowed to be clergy by the Catholic faith. And when he said he's saving himself for marriage,
but he also said
when he said women, Andrew, when he said that women shouldn't be allowed to vote and should stay at home, i.e., shouldn't also have jobs, would you agree with that? The Catholic Church does not have dogmatic teaching on democracy. They're not like, democracy is the standard. No, I'm asking you whether you think when he says women shouldn't be allowed to vote and should stay at home and not work.
Well, I think most people shouldn't be allowed to vote. I think I would limit suffrage for most people,
our
founders did.
Would you make it specific to women? Would you make it specific to women?
Not specific.
Hang on. Let me finish this.
Why would that matter?
Well, because I do think if you say, I do think after they've waged a 100-year war, women for women's equal rights, to then remove one of the wrenching building blocks of that, which is what the suffragettes fought for, the right to vote.
Feminism was created by a man, and he was a Jew. Like, shut the fuck up.
I think if you remove that...
Oh, come on. That whole movement was totally astroturf. That's one. And
well,
two,
it wasn't on the right to vote.
Point this out. There's a good argument from a Christian perspective to make that the husband, the head of the household, should be the one voting. Within his dogma, that would make sense. So there is a Christian case that you could make for that the head of household, the wife...
Harry's face is so smackable. Like, I don't encourage violence, but it's like, look at his dumbass face. Look at all Harry's facial expressions he makes. He tries so hard to act offended. It's ridiculous.
Right now, what goes on in Christian households is that the wife is just doubling the vote of the man, right? So this is not against the purview of Fuentes, and it doesn't even sound particularly misogynistic to me. The
Okay,
19th
Harry,
Amendment.
Harry, what's your response to that? Uncensored is proudly sponsored by Code. Their appearances and remember, the show is sponsored by Oxford Naturally. Take it to very familiar on order.
How much to respond to right there.
% off with the code Piers.
I mean, there's so much to respond to right there. I do want to point out that Andrew was talking about, Nick Fuentes is a good Christian. He's being celibate until marriage because of this reason. That's not what he said in the interview. When he was going back and forth with you on this, Piers, he talked about how women are gross and they get fat and they're ugly, and he wouldn't give his female friend a tampon because they're gross and things like that. So Andrew is making an argument for Nick that
Harry's definitely the guy to carry like 3 tampons in his back pocket and just offer them to women constantly.
Nick did not make in the interview. Nick Fuentes is just an open misogynist who has spent far too much time in his basement alone, festering online and getting involved in his own conspiracy theories that he's creating. It has nothing, or at least via his own words in the interview, he did not present it as a case of him being religious and him staying perfectly to the religious text. Now, no,
yes,
he didn't.
He did. I have the quote. I have
go
the
watch.
quote.
Go, Andrew. Go watch the viral clip. Wait, Andrew. Go watch the back and forth with Piers. Go watch the back and forth with Piers when he asked me. Andrew, please be quiet. Go watch the back and forth with Piers in that specific instance. Harry, asked him, why are you a virgin? Have you slept with anybody? And yes, go watch the clip. Fine, let the record speak for itself. You can go watch the clip if you'd like. That's what he said.
No, you said he didn't give a reason.
The entire interview. Andrew, can you please be quiet? Can you just zip it for a second?
Why don't we watch the exchange again and clarify?
Let's do it.
Are you actually attracted to women?
I am attracted to women.
You're not gay?
No. But I will say that women are very difficult to be around.
Okay.
So there's that.
And do you think they should have the right to vote?
No.
I do not. No, absolutely not.
They should stay at home?
Well, yeah, absolutely.
See, basically, you're just a misogynist old dinosaur, aren't you? For a young guy.
Yeah.
I mean, I know I'm the boomer here, but actually, you're a 27-year-old dinosaur, aren't you? Aren't you, Nick Fuentes? All women.
I am.
All women are annoying. All women grow
fossil.
old. They all get fat. Says the guy. Have you ever had sex?
No, absolutely not.
Wow. Says the guy who's never got laid.
That's the thing, though. You boomers, it's
you think
always
you're an
get
expert
laid,
in women,
free love.
given you've never got laid?
Yeah, we are going back to the Stone Age. You're absolutely right. This, you're talking about empathy, and your kids are empathetic, and they would never laugh at a joke about the Holocaust, and you're a misogynist. You're a simp yourself. You're totally henpecked. That's the problem.
So he doesn't actually Andrew, mention the reason that you've given.
Not in that clip, but he did mention that he,
if it's so important to him, why didn't he say it?
Supposed to be chaste.
If it's so important to him, why didn't he say it right there? Why didn't he say it right there? Because his reasoning right there was women are gross and they get fat and things like that.
Yeah.
Wait, no, but if this is so important,
that's
his reason.
That's a cherry picked.
No, Andrew. If that's his reason doesn't change in 5 minutes. He doesn't go from, I'm a Catholic, I'm staying true to my religion, to, women are gross and that's why I don't do it. Wait. You just said that
it's so clear who actually knows Nick and who doesn't here, because Harry sees the clips, Harry sees this interview, and then Harry's like, oh, what a misogynist pig. What a piece of shit. Oh my lord, he doesn't think women should vote? He's a virgin? And then Andrew's just like, dude, he's a Catholic. That's part of Catholic teaching. And Harry refused to accept that. I mean, Nick constantly on his show talks about how he's waiting till marriage.
Religion is the main reason as to why he's celibate. So
That's
now
what
it
he
was the
said,
main
yes.
reason 5 minutes before, and then it fast forward to 5 minutes
It is
later,
the
and he's
main
like, well,
reason.
women are gross.
That doesn't mean he can't have multiple reasons and a primary
It's just
reason.
such an important reason that he didn't bring it up again. That makes total sense. He just brought up an entirely different reason.
Okay, so that was his first reason. That was his first
views.
reason because it was the most important reason.
But in that interaction, he didn't say anything
This
about
is why Harry sucks at debating. I mean, this is the most retarded style of debate ever.
religion. And if it's his central view, if it's so central to who he is that he bases his
60-second
misogynistic
clip,
views
dude?
off of,
Well, the other thing, if I could jump in, the other thing we bring.
Come on, don't crash out like you did on that podcast, man.
Hang on, let me bring Glen back in. The other argument, which I thought was interesting, and I thought I missed a bit of a trick here with him, was when he was talking about the Holocaust, where people have assumed he's a Holocaust denier because of things he said in the past, of trivializing it, questioning the number of people who've died and so on. He seemed to try and take a more moderate position, which was, yes, I believe 6 million Jews were killed, maybe more. Whether he meant that or whether he was being some sort of satirical.
He was
thing.
satirizing you. He was satirizing that.
That's what I now believe was probably happening. Yeah. So I suspect he was.
Yeah.
But regardless, his argument was it all happened so long ago. Why did Jews continue talking about the Holocaust? We've all moved on. They use it all the time as a political weapon and so on.
We've literally witnessed the Holocaust. We just witnessed one in Gaza.
And of course, I suppose the obvious question for him, I went and checked afterwards how many times he's talked about, for example, on his show, the crucifixion of Jesus Christ, which was over 2,000 years ago, right? He does it all the time. So, if I'd been smart in the moment as a fellow Christian, I would say, well, hang on, but isn't that exactly what Christians do all the time about the crucifixion? What's the difference?
Sounds like his religion does matter to him.
Because it's absolutely central to their religion. And I think, I do think so much of what your interview with Nick Fuentes highlighted was extreme generational differences. It was sometimes like watching two people speak different languages. Piers, you and I are kind of the same age, or obviously older, everyone can see that, but just a little bit. And, for people who were born in like the 60s, the Holocaust was just 20 years before. World War II had just ended 20 years before. There was a mythology about the United States, about our role in the world, about how great of a country we were, about all the great things we did, about the Holocaust, the unique evil. Now it's 75 years ago. And people who are next generation, where Harrys were born in, 2000 and 2002. And this idea that the Holocaust has been weaponized. We've been beaten over the head with it for 8 decades. We've been forced to spend and pay huge amounts of money in reparations.
The fact that I'm not supposed to feel proud of being white and be happy to be white, and I should feel ashamed to be white because of the Holocaust is what drove so many people to be like, okay, who gives a shit at this point? That is one major reason, beyond a few others, but that is one of the major reasons where it's like slavery, the Holocaust, all these things. You're taught it's bad to be white. It's bad to be pro-white. It's bad for white people to group together and gather together and have a shared identity or shared culture. That's part of the reason. And none of these people seem to understand that.
Or that slavery is sometimes weaponized that way. This is a very common view. So I think when he's doing things like making jokes about the Holocaust, it's not because he thinks it's funny that huge numbers of people were exterminated. I think it's a way of purposely being transgressive about orthodoxies and pieties that a lot of people in his generation don't accept.
But Glenn, hang on. There was a callousness to it. And I'll tell you why. I brought on a guy called Danny Finkelstein. He's a
what a surprise that Harry doesn't think World War II is cool.
Top journalist for the Times newspaper over here, who wrote a very powerful book about
he brought the guy who's like, me mom is boot leather, me mom is soap, me dad is a shoe. It's like, dude, shut the fuck up. Nobody cares at this point.
Family and their horrendous experience at the hands of Hitler and Stalin. And it's incredibly powerful. It's very moving. It's informed his life. And I'm going to talk to Danny, actually, after we finish this. Because he's been on the receiving end of the most appalling abuse in the last 48 hours. All directed by Nick Fuentes, who was so dismissive of him talking about his mother and father.
Dude?
So just callous in the way he responded. It's that kind of utter devoidness of any empathy whatsoever. You can have a view that we should try and move on generationally from these seismic moments, okay, but you don't have to be so callous towards somebody whose family literally got murdered by people like Hitler and Stalin, do we? I mean,
But the idea here, I think the thing is like this generation of people grew up in the wake of the Iraq War, in the wake of endless war, in the wake of the destruction of their financial security with the 2008 financial crisis, with all the lies of COVID and Russiagate and all the rest of it. And faith and trust in these institutions have collapsed. So when they look at people who represent institutional...
Glen is actually giving some good input, and then Harry's like just huffing and puffing and seething like Harry, you're a bitch. You're a bitch, Harry. Fuck you. You are such a fucking seething loser.
Thinking, and they're told you're not allowed to make fun of this and you're not allowed to talk about this and except in the ways that we prescribe, and we're going to call you all these names unless you affirm all these pieties over and over and over again. One of the ways of rebelling against that is to say, it's a very common generational reaction, is to say, F you, we're going to transgress every line that you told us we can't because we hate you. We think that the things that you're doing have been destructive to our lives. And I think ignoring that part of youthful transgression, which is very common.
You know what, Glenn? I think it's a very valid point, and there may well be a generational thing to this. Let me bring in Warren. Just for the record, by the way, Andrew, we've just been through the whole transcript, and he never uses the excuse that you put. You may have heard him do it elsewhere. He talked about clergy, whether women should be allowed to be clergy women and so on, and obviously they can't under the Catholic Church doctrine. But he never uses. He never says celibacy is for religious reasons.
That's his primary view. His primary view is he's supposed to wait until marriage.
That may be his view, but he didn't express that view in my interview. Is the point? We just checked the transcript.
Andrew was just saying, "Oh, I have the quote, and there's no quote."
Well, look, it may. Look, I can't rule out. I can't rule out. He hasn't said it elsewhere, and it may be Andrew's heard him say that before. I'm just saying, in my interview, he doesn't.
Sometimes on TV, we can just say, "You know what? I made a mistake." It's okay to be like, "Yeah, I got it wrong. I may have heard it elsewhere."
Yeah. I like that.
All right, let me bring Warren back in. Look, Warren, you're a critical thinker. Glenn's stopped me in my tracks a little bit and made me think about this, right? Because I think there is probably a generational thing here. And I do think that in a way, maybe Mark's right, that by me interviewing Fuentes, the only real winner at the end of the day may be Nick Fuentes, because none of his supporters, certainly from the reaction I've had, have changed their impression of him one iota. I mean, they just assumed he just landslided me and that was it, and I was an old boomer sent packing. And it may be, as Mark says, that other more moderate people quite like some of the things they heard. I don't know. He is charismatic, he's a good talker, and he's smart and all these things. I don't dispute any of that. From a critical...
I know tons of people who weren't on board with Nick yet who are now full-blown fucking groypers because of the Piers interview. So I think Piers had the opposite effect in which he originally intended.
Thinking point of view, where does this take society? If people like Nick Fuentes grow ever more...
Why does it fucking do this every now and then where it just freezes? All right, give me one moment. This only takes a second.
What quite like some of the things they heard. I don't know. He is charismatic, he's a good talker, and he's smart and all these things. I don't dispute any of that. From a critical thinking point of view, where does this take society? If people like Nick Fuentes grow ever more popular, what will happen to a whole army of young men here?
Well, last night I held a focus group to try and get to the bottom of this, and I was with over 30 people. The vast majority, 3 disagreed with the vast majority. And what they were saying things such as, I went into this exchange not expecting to like anything about this guy, but what I saw was Piers not contending with his arguments. I think that's why when you bring up his dad, that's why he gets upset, because he's saying, look, man, I'm here. Let's talk. Why are you talking about my dad? Contend with my logic. It's the same thing when that was his response when you brought on your British friend who told his horrific story, which like it's terrible. And you could disagree with his response to it, but I think he's saying, why are we, you're just telling me what you're saying is bad, but you're not really contending with the argument. And I think that is the core problem that has led to this outcome, because you can play these clips. There's nothing wrong with that. I don't think he was surprised by anything that occurred in here. That's another reason that you're seeing the backlash, is because it was exactly what people predicted largely. But when you play that clip, it's like, okay, yes, that's taken from a large stream. In the past, people evolve. And if you're asking him in that conversation to expand on that, and then he does present logic, what I'm seeing is people saying, no, you're saying that now, but you're lying. You're playing this game. You're pretending to be moderate. And now you're mind reading. You're saying, I know what Nick Fuentes thinks more than Nick Fuentes. And I do think it's really important in these exchanges to come at it with that first principle of, I'm going to take the wild approach that I'm going to wipe the slate blank and assume that the person who knows the most about what Nick Fuentes actually thinks is Nick Fuentes. And that seldom happens. And when it does, I saw a vastly different response to my conversation, but I don't think I challenged him any less.
Right. That's very, you know what? It's very interesting. It's very interesting. I've been reading, I mean, I read and take note of the more nuanced commentary about it. I don't listen to the groypers all ranting away or attacking me or my family or whatever. They can do what they like. They can do that the rest of their lives. I couldn't give a damn. But I do think there are interesting arguments to be had about this, because whether we like it or not, he is a phenomenon. He's a growing phenomenon, and young people are gravitating to him, and it may well be for the reasons that Glen articulated. And how we, the rest of us, deal with this is a really interesting story. But that was a really interesting discussion. Thank you all very much. I appreciate it. Well, joining me now is Daniel Finkelstein from The Times, who wanted to address the anti-Semitism row with Nick Fuentes. So, Danny, I played...
Is this going to be the... It's him. Me mom was made into the leather.
We discussed this. You sent me like a 90-second video clip to play him about your own family's horrific experience at the hands of Hitler and Stalin from your very powerful book. And I'd be struck by 2 things. One, his utterly dismissive reaction in the moment. But secondly, the horrible pile-on that's been directed at you in the most mocking, awful manner. That's really interesting. What's it been like for you?
So that is a bit distressing. There's no 2 ways about it. But I suppose you have to understand that Hitler would never have come to power in the first place if there weren't a lot of people with that mentality, and that's all he's proving. His own response on the programme was, I think, the only thing that he sort of felt he could do. But I think he made a big mistake. I think he thinks, he lived it large by admitting what, kind of just saying to you, yeah, sure, I'm a racist. Sure, I don't like black people. Sure, I don't want women to vote. Sure, I think the Holocaust is fine. He thinks that he's winning out of that. But actually what he's doing ultimately is marginalising himself. So he does produce, as you've experienced and as I have, this kind of deep reaction where people, interestingly...
It's funny because this guy thinks he's right.
...repeated his jokes. So it was all like a bit of a cult. And I noticed that. And that's not nice to receive, but I think it's worth it in order to try to expose the sort of person he is and to try to isolate him from the rest of the American right, which I'm very concerned about. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to you to go ahead and confront him in the way that you did, which I think was very effective, and why I wanted to join in with that. Because I think it's really important that this kind of thinking doesn't go into the mainstream of the right. And he chose the path of deepening rather than widening, and that was a mistake.
Yeah, he did.
This is the mainstream now. You're retarded.
But it's whether he would see that as a mistake or whether he thinks, as he says, we're a couple of old boomers who just don't get it, who don't understand how young American men are thinking right now, and he's much more aware of how they are thinking about issues.
Calling us boomers is like reconfiguring or rebadging his incredible ignorance and childishness as an asset. In fact, what was obvious is he hasn't got the foggiest clue what he's talking about, and he doesn't know anything about. There was one
These
brilliant bit where
boomers
he
are
said he thought
retarded.
Hitler was cool. He said, "I'm not in favour of genocide." In parenthesis, well, you actually are, and so he doesn't really understand anything about it, and nor do his supporters. So they kind of dismiss it airily as a laugh, and who cares what happened all that time ago, and then calls us boomers as if you or I cared about that.
Yeah.
Right? So
It's
yes,
not
it's
about
actually-
you guys caring. It's about you guys realizing that you're relics of the past and you're irrelevant and your points are pretty fucking irrelevant. And you trying to make like a video saying like, hey guys, buy my book. Me mom got turned into soap. Me dad is a shoe. It's like, okay, really? Like you guys thinking the generational differences don't exist shows that we're winning.
Absolutely true. I've lived quite a bit longer than him in order that I've actually read more books, understood more, and know more of what I'm talking about. So
I doubt that.
he was sensitive about his own ignorance, and it came out in a kind of bragging way. And then, of course, a load of other people pile on to support that as if they're unbothered by it. But he's made a mistake, which he'll live to regret, even though he's 27 now and hasn't lived very long to regret anything.
What's happening with the kind of conservative movement in totality in America is fascinating. You're seeing splits within the MAGA movement. You're seeing others now developing, like Fuentes and others outside of MAGA, going very hostile on Trump and so on. You're seeing a lot of stuff going on here. What do you make of it?
So it's really fascinating thing is the split between your two interviewees, Tucker Carlson and Nick Fuentes.
Yes.
So ultimately, that actually is in fact what I'm really interested in producing. Right? Tucker Carlson has gone wild. Some of the things, as you laughed in his face when he said some of the things about the French. His ridiculous point about Poland, not understanding at all, of course we had to enter the war before Hitler invaded us. Any historical account will show that we couldn't trust
The United States never should have got involved in World War II. There's a great book by Buchanan about it. We never should have got involved.
him or have a deal with him.
And in fact, we had a contractual obligation to help Poland,
and which we went into not simply because of Polish human rights, but because we understood strategically we had to do that. The American, by the way, did not do that and ended up being dragged into the war anyway. So Tucker Carlson's position was ridiculous, but it's not yet Nick Fuentes' position. His position is, I don't know why you British are that bothered about the Holocaust.
Yes.
But he's not actually in favour of it, which is the Fuentes position. Driving a wedge between those two things, making Tucker Carlson feel he can go that far, but he can't go as far. He can endorse a lot of cranks, but not Nick Fuentes. That is valuable, and I think has been achieved by his interview with Fuentes, your interview with both of them.
I just had a panel discussion about it where one of the panelists argued quite strongly, I shouldn't have platformed him at all, that actually all you end up doing is helping him grow his movement.
Okay, I think that you and I have to recognise in our different media
Piers
ways,
helped him
we
grow.
don't any longer, because of the way that internet works, have the power just to say, well, let's no one listen to Nick Fuentes.
Yeah.
He's got a platform. It's ridiculous to argue he hasn't got a platform.
I agree.
And I took the view, and I know, some people said this to you before you did the interview. That was not my position, and I think it was vindicated by what happened. It's important to expose what he thinks. We've all got to understand it. It's an important part of the development of the right in the United States, and that may come also to Britain as well. We've got to understand it. We've got to listen to it carefully, see what its weak points are. So one of his clear weak points, he's cut off all women from supporting his position, right? Well, that's half the population to start off with. So he has, he's making mistakes, and making him talk on the record in a challenging way is part of forcing him to do
Most Catholic women agree that they probably shouldn't vote.
that. Of course he can't see it. If he could see it,
Like, if you can't trust your husband to vote for you, why are you marrying the guy?
he wouldn't have made it,
Yeah.
but he couldn't see it.
Well, Danny, thank you. I hope it wasn't too bruising an experience to
No,
get
it was
involved in that. 'Cause
valuable.
I've had a lot of backlash to stuff over the years. This hasn't been the worst. I've had worse, but it's been pretty ferocious.
No, it's-
if you
it's
get
quite bracing, I
you
agree.
enter the world of Nick Fuentes and his Groyper army. It's nasty. It's a nasty little cesspit.
Absolutely.
And you've got to have pretty broad shoulders to deal with it. You have, I have. So we'll continue to do our jobs.
We will.
Thank you very much. Piers Morgan Uncensored is proudly independent.
That's the entire episode. Okay, that was a fun little reaction. That's hilarious that they think. It's just hilarious. The entire thing. Like, one, Harry's facial expressions were crazy. His his dismissal of like bringing up Nick's dad, him not even acknowledging that his wife is cucking him, although he's still bringing up the dad, bringing on the fucking shoe guy, like that's crazy. The whole thing was the black guy interrupting. I thought the entire thing was funny, but hope everyone enjoyed. That's been the show. We're going to go over to our comments now. Read out the comments. I want to remind everyone to like, smash the follow button, leave a comment, let me know what you think about the show. Please rate the show 5 stars as well on Spotify if you enjoy, and join our Telegram channel by scanning the code up in the corner. Stay updated on all things America Unfiltered. With that, let's get right into our comments, though.
What exactly do you hate about Trump? I think he's racist, and frankly very retarded.
Trump is racist? Shut the fuck up. Trump, like, pretends to be racist to pander to people like me, who don't want immigrants in this country. I don't think Trump's actually... Trump has been a Democrat his entire fucking life. Trump was funding liberals before he became a Republican. You obviously don't fucking know anything about politics. And the reasons I don't like him is because he is part of the establishment now. Trump in 2015, 2016 stood up there and was like, we're going to dismantle the deep state. We're not going to allow money to run politics. We're going to allow the people to run politics. The power is back to the people. Americanism, not globalism. And now Donald Trump is importing the third world. Donald Trump is sending billions of dollars to Israel. Like, what have we sent $30 billion to Israel this year? He's having sleepovers with Bibi Netanyahu. He's bombing Iran and justifying it. He oversaw genocide for Israel and that Israel committed on Palestine, and he's cool with it, you know? I think Trump sold out a lot. I think a lot of it's just pandering.
This is America. If you are not criticizing your government, you're doing it wrong. Great quote.
If you are not criticizing your government, you're doing the entire thing wrong. I mean, that is your role and duty as an American to criticize the corrupt rulers over you who are fucking just dangling the littlest piece of food in front of you like you're a slave.
How did this guy figure out video on Spotify but the rest of them can't?
Are you saying how did I figure out how to get on Spotify when like people like Nick can, or how did I figure out how to do video on here? If it's the video part, it's because people who don't know how to upload videos are retarded. If it's the other thing, it's because I don't fucking know. I don't know. Maybe because I'm newer. I've only been doing the show for 11 months. Nick's been doing it for 10 years. Maybe they'll ban me one day. Hopefully not. I love Spotify. I think Spotify's been pretty good on free speech. I think if Nick was newer, Spotify would definitely allow him on. But Nick's been doing this for 10 years. There's articles written about him saying some of the most grotesque lies. And that definitely doesn't help the chances of being allowed to be on a platform like that. And I completely disagree. Nick should be allowed to speak on every platform. I think we all have a right to free speech, and it's ridiculous to take that away from somebody. But if it's about just video, you know, anyone who doesn't know how to upload video is just retarded.
Candace Owens shouldn't go to TP seat down because she will get shot like Charlie Kirk. Nick is trying to set her up.
That's retarded. If Candace Owens went to Turning Point and got shot, it would be the most obvious fucking thing ever that Turning Point killed Candace. And then you could safely assume that Turning Point was also behind Charlie Kirk. Your entire logic is flawed and retarded and just shows you have no critical thinking skills.
Nick is big crybaby. If no one likes Candace's content, then don't watch it. It's literally entertaining to watch, that's it. The same with all things of the internet. I used to like Nick, but after listening to an hour non-stop rant of him throwing a tantrum that Candace is making money from YouTube is just crazy. Bad look, white nigga.
Shut the fuck up. Like, no offense, that's retarded. Candace making money for months, monetizing streams. I've been complaining about this, like, shut up. Candace monetizing the stream of her best friend, so-called best friend, while drip feeding information is terrible. I mean, Candace saying, and we'll tell you more tomorrow, while monetizing it all is fucking insane. This isn't Bravo TV. This is the fucking news. This is politics. This is real world shit. And she's not treating it like that. So, shut the fuck up.
I used to love listening to Candace and her actual journalism. She's fallen so far off and is clearly just trying to monetize everything she can. Truly is disappointing. Glad I found your podcast. I've been listening for about 3 months now.
Let's go. Thank you. I appreciate the support. Yeah, it's sad because we all grew up watching people like Charlie Kirk, Candace Owens, Ben Shapiro, and now I feel like we use the skills we learned from them to come back and fucking defeat them. Like, and I don't say that about Charlie Kirk. Like, that's not what I mean by that. I mean, if you guys saw my stream after Charlie passed, you guys know my feelings on it. Very sad. Although I didn't agree with him on everything, still respect the guy, but more applies to Candace and Ben Shapiro. But yeah, I think what Candace is doing is ridiculous. Like, it's insane. It's not justifiable right now.
What was the false info that was fed to Candace that you know of?
See, I don't know if I should out my guest on that. Let me ask him, and if he gives me the green light, I'll say it on tomorrow's show. But it was one of her things that she said was 100% true. I'll give you that. But it was completely false. It was just made up out of thin air. Pulled it out of his ass. But yeah. Let me ask the viewer. I don't want to get someone in trouble.
Net annual cost. A widely cited report from the Federation for American Immigration Reform, FAIR, a conservative advocacy group, estimates the net annual cost of illegal immigration to U.S. taxpayers, federal, state, and local, was at least $150.7 billion at the start of 2023. Other estimates cited by House Republicans range as high as $451 billion annually.
Yeah, that doesn't even include the NGOs and all that shit.
Wiz is not good at all. I had it, and I would say that it's even safe for the Snapchat with this app. They show photos that you post random people, usually the photos you want to be attractive to people, and I was asked to do something once and then they said that all my family and all that it was a big deal for me.
Holy shit. Yeah, I'm glad you're okay. Stay off fucking apps like that. They're weird. They're weird. Any app like that is just, it's terrible. People who made that app should be arrested immediately. There wasn't a lot of news in the, there wasn't a lot of things to talk about yesterday, so I figured, like, why not talk about this, because I saw it. And yeah, the Wiz app's fucking terrible. It's just Tinder for kids. It's like, why the fuck do kids need Tinder? They don't. Kids need books.
Brother, I clicked this to listen to the interview, not you. Shush.
Tell me you have no brain cells without telling me you have no brain cells. You could just go and click on the interview on Piers' page, but instead you clicked on a reaction on my page. You're a retard. Your opinion's irrelevant. Shut the fuck up.
I have 3 kids and only my oldest son, soon to be 13, has a phone. We have to approve any app he downloads and he has no access to Safari or any other browser. Luckily he is a good Christian kid, but I worry about what he sees on other kids' phones more than his. It's tough, but you have to be willing to piss your kid off to keep their lives the purest possible. My boys all play sports year-rounds and don't have a lot of idle time. When we aren't at the ball field, they work on the farm.
Good for you, brother. I know me and you had a little back and forth in the comments for a little bit, but that's awesome, and I'll keep praying for your family. Yeah, sometimes you gotta piss your kids off to do right. Your kids don't understand things the way you do. And obviously generations evolve. Like, we see that with the Piers Morgan Nick Fuentes dispute. Like, there's going to be generational differences that you kind of have to adapt to. But at the same time, sheltering, keeping your kids safe from the fucking rampant pedophiles that are on the internet, props to you. You're a good dad for that. That's awesome. And being a good dad's the most important thing over everything. And I'm sure you're a great father. So that's awesome. Awesome your kids play sports and that they're working as well. That's very important to build character. So that's really awesome. I'll keep praying for you and your family. Thank you for commenting.
Jesus is king.
Yep, Christ is king. Thank you. I appreciate when people say that. That's awesome. I love when people agree. Christ is king.
Gen X here. Turning Point is the best tool we have in the fight against the 2 most dangerous things our nation and younger generations are going to have to deal with: the extreme left and Islam. Both are totalitarian. Candace is tearing that tool apart. Maybe a new tool should be built before throwing away the one we have. Additionally, I don't think we have enough time for that if shit pops off. I'd rather it happen now, so that I can keep my kids safe, leaving them out of it.
Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying at the end there. That's just wishful thinking, saying, like, I wish it would happen now so I don't have to deal with it later. Like, I get that, but... And then also at the same time, I don't think Turning Point at this point is doing what they were doing in the past. Like, Charlie Kirk was Turning Point. And a lot of people fail to realize that. Like, yes, Turning Point still exists. Erica Kirk is now the CEO. But Charlie Kirk was Turning Point. Who was going to the college campuses? Like, there were multiple people who worked under Turning Point's umbrella that would go to these college campuses and would do debates. Did anyone watch any of them besides Charlie's? Like, were people watching Officer Tatum's fucking college interviews? No. They weren't, or college debates? No. No one gave a shit. It was Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk was the brand. And very sadly, Charlie Kirk was assassinated in front of all of our eyes. And I hate to say it, but Turning Point, or the idea of what Turning Point was, died in that moment. And I don't mean to be morbid, but it's to say that without Charlie Kirk, Turning Point is not what it used to be. Now it's just a way to fundraise money for the GOP. Now it's a way to register voters for the GOP. It's not a way to, like, you have nobody who's making these clips for social media. Like, who's going to make these clips? Fucking Andrew Colvett? Who's going to, like, the guys at Turning Point who also, like, Jack Posobiec is going to be the new face of the franchise? Like, no. Let's be realistic here. There's nobody who can replace what Charlie Kirk did for Turning Point or for America. And, you know, if you want to even go that big. But when Charlie Kirk was assassinated, the idea of what Turning Point was assassinated with it. Very, very sad. Very awful that it happened. I would give so much to have Charlie Kirk back on this earth, even with how much I disagree with him on a lot of things. But I think Charlie Kirk was an amazing man, and he was a father, and he was a husband above everything else, and a man of God. But yeah, I don't think that Turning Point USA is holding off the extreme left in Islam at this point. I think you have, like, Jack Posobiec tweeting out, like, fuck Muslims, and it's like, okay, like, is that what Charlie Kirk was doing? No, Charlie Kirk was way better at it. Charlie Kirk would actually dismantle these people's talking points because he had the knowledge and the brain power to do so, and that's just not happening anymore. I genuinely think the Groypers are the next wave to take over. Thanks for your input, though.
He bent Piers over metaphorically.
Yeah, he did. He did.
Dude, I never said you were defending communism.
Yeah, your clip was pretty fucking, you're pretty confusing then, but here's your explanation.
That it would still be a good thing if the regime ended because the people they ally with hate us.
Yeah, maybe.
It's just something to take into consideration, that's all.
Yeah, I just still don't think we should be doing another regime change war. I get the argument behind it, but someone else gave their input.
I think people are forgetting that there was some controversy about Venezuela's vote counting machines being used here. I get not wanting to spend on foreign entanglements, but at least this is in our hemisphere, and has an real effect on our country. Personally, I think it's worth considering going back to colonization. If we get involved, it needs to benefit US. Venezuela is a territory, or something, worth considering?
Yeah, I mean, here's my take on it. Like, we were offered a deal where we would get all their gold and oil and all their future gold and oil. And then Marco Rubio's like, no, we're going to go to war. And that's where we're at now. Now we're taking oil tankers over, and we're talking about, like, bombs on land, and we're talking about possible ground forces. And it's like, is that really better than just the deal where Maduro would have stepped down? We would have got all future gold, all future oil, and all the gold and oil they have now? Like, I don't get why we didn't accept that. And, like, a lot of boomer, like, I was disagreeing with a boomer about it, and they were saying the same thing, and I'm like, how the fuck is that better? And they're like, because Trump said so. And I'm like, you're an idiot. Just because Trump said so, that's your fucking reason? I understand the perspective, and again, I'm not, like, pro-Maduro, but you guys get my point that it's like, why should we be using our military to push another regime change war that realistically has little to nothing to fucking do with us? Sorry about that. I'm still fucking sick. Keep muting myself every time I talk, so I don't have to show you guys that. We got one more comment.
Why did you erase my comments yesterday?
That's from Fidel. I didn't. If for some reason your comments didn't appear, that's on your end, buddy, not on mine. Feel free to re-comment them, and they will be up on I'll read them out on the show tomorrow. I don't delete any comments, though. I do not delete comments. Let's see. Let's check over on Rumble and YouTube, see if we got anything there. Nothing on Rumble. I don't know if we got anything on YouTube either. What the fuck? So this is someone who also commented on Spotify, but is now commenting on YouTube as well.
This is continued from my Spotify comment since I can only comment once there. But I get it about Candace. I don't believe everything she says either, but you have to admit this shit is entertaining. So whether she's grifting or not, it's social media. Do your own research. Whining about a YouTube making money, whether it's from saving lives or investigating a murder and blaming the family, you can't knock her hustle. I honestly feel like because she's gaining so much traction in the media, more than anyone else, PPL are literally hating that they don't have the same followers and notoriety. Anyway, I still love your show. No hate there. Been busy working and planning holiday travels with kids, but I'm still watching daily. America first, flag of the United States.
I appreciate the M part, but just to talk about the beginning part, why does it only let you comment once? Does Spotify only let you guys comment once? That's fucking weird. Is that why Fidel always does like one comment and then like 5 fucking replies to my other comment? That's weird. I'm curious about that. There's no setting on my part that says you guys can only comment once. That's a Spotify thing, if anything. And again, the problem is the way she does it. Like, if Candace gave all the information at once and was monetizing it, I wouldn't give a shit. Literally wouldn't fucking care at all. But Candace saying, and find out tomorrow, and I'm going to release a different name every day this week, it's like, it proves every point I say about women in politics and media to be correct. And I hope you're able to see that. Again, it's not that she's necessarily just monetizing it, it's that she's drip feeding information while monetizing. That's the fucking problem. That's the problem over everything else. Let's refresh it one more time, see if any new comments came in. Yeah, holy shit, there we go. We just got one.
Plam 97 hours and 10 minutes. O you who love the Lord, hate evil. He preserves the lives of his saints. He delivers them from the hand of the wicked. It is not a sin to hate sin and hate evil. Pedophiles are evil, and I hate them righteously.
Good scripture quote there. Yeah, I agree. Righteous hate's a thing. I just try and avoid it. It's just bad for it's bad for your brain. It's bad for the soul, bad for the heart. But I agree. I mean, there's nothing redeemable about pedophiles. They need the death sentence. That's the only way to redeem a not even redeem, but the only way to fix a situation is the death sentence. Alright, let's refresh one more time, I guess, if we got one there. Nope, that's it. Now we're going to sign off today. I'm not feeling well, but hopefully tomorrow I'm feeling a little better. Definitely by Monday I'll be feeling better. We're still going to do a show tomorrow, though. We got our casual Friday show tomorrow. Hope you guys have a great day. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. Please remember to like, smash the follow button, leave a comment, let me know what you think about the show. All the comments will read at the end of the show, and rate the show 5 stars on Spotify. And please remember to scan the code up in the corner. Stay updated on all things America First and America Unfiltered. But with that, I'm going to sign off today. Hope you guys have a blessed day, a blessed night, and I'll see you guys tomorrow on Friday. Thank you.